Okay, so here we are in the kitchen. Now I have a cup of very hot water here. It's just tap water, but it's come out steaming. I don't know how well I'm gonna be able to do this on video because I need two hands to do it. And I don't really have anywhere. I can't hold the camera and do this. But basically, we're going to take this piece of wood. This is the veneer I've cut to size. And we're literally just going to dunk it in this wood, in this water. So we're just going to dunk it in there. We're going to hold it in there for a bit. It's just going to. Its main thing is it's going to take on moisture, and the other bit is the heat will make it supple, and that literally should be all I need. I can already begin to see it beginning to cup. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. It's beginning to cup, so that should work. Now if I try and roll this, as I've said before, this is the way the grain's going top to bottom. If you try and roll it that way, you can't do it because the grain's going the wrong way. You need to roll it with the grain, but if you roll it dry with the grain, it will just snap. It will literally snap down one of the grain lines. I learned that much off of woodworking videos. So I'll find a quick bit of tissue paper just to dab the worst of the liquid off. And like I say, I don't know how well this is going to come out on camera, but look, what I'm going to try and do is roll this, and it looks like it's going to go, and that's it. There you go. Now it's going to overlap. Again, I don't know if you can see that, but that's good. Overlapping is good. That means that we can cut that back. Now all I'm going to do, so I've got some tape, and we're just going to, it won't stick to the wood, the veneer particularly well because it's wet, but actually I've got a better idea. Oh my, yes. I was just thinking about using an elastic band, but actually what I think I'm going to use, one of these bag ties, because I can pull that all the way around really tight. Like that. And then, sorry, I know this, half of this isn't even in the video. There we go. We can just tie that off, and that is pulled around this 10mm. And again, I don't think I'll get it in the frame. There, can you just see that's just overlapped? And that's good, because that means it's, this piece I've cut is too big to fit in that hole. You don't want it overlapped. I want to cut this back, sorry. I want to cut this back so that they butt up against each other. But we'll do that once it's dry. So we'll come back when this is dry. Okay, you join me back at the guitar with this fully dry. And as you can see, this fits in the hole really quite nicely. You can see there's a good overlap, which means we've got plenty of room to trim that back. Might not be the easiest thing to trim back because now I can't get it flat to lay it against a flat surface to cut it nice and straight with a knife. So that's going to be an interesting one. I didn't think that one through before I did it, but then it's almost impossible to measure this. I'm sure there's a mathematical formula, but I don't know it. So we'll take this out. I've just put it in there for the time being. You can see it's chipped a little bit as it's dried. Possibly might have even been better to have got this in here while it was still slightly damp. But we'll see. So, but it fits in there nicely. This actually needs a pair of pliers to come out. So what we're going to do is I'll mark it off where it needs to be cut. I'm not worried about any chips at the top here. Whether you can see this bit's got a chip in it and that bit there has got a chip in it. Doesn't matter because this is all the way down now. This is all the way to the bottom. And it's going to get glued in, and then I have a good little cut back chisel, not a wood chisel, but a like a scalpel blade chisel. This is a very good cut back tool, and we'll come in along here and we'll literally just slice this and we'll cut it back flush. A little bit of sandpaper and that will take it right down. I can already tell that that's not going to fit in there. This interior, the inside hole in here is now too small for this to fit. We'll have to wait until I get this in where it doesn't have the overlap, because obviously every little overlap adds another 0.5 millimeter to it. So once we get it pulled back, there'll be an extra little bit of space. Once we get it glued in nice and tight, then we'll see whether it's actually going to work. I mean, there's a possibility it might not even need to be glued. I might just be able to press it in, but I think the glue will stop it from splitting. But we'll see. So that will be the next bit, the next part. The next part will be mark it, trim it, set it back in the hole, glued in place. We'll do another one for this side. I was tempted to try and mark this off and cut this here and use this top bit for that, but I've got enough of this wood that I can make loads of these more. In fact, I made 2 more that are still drying now. Actually, they're probably dry as well, to be fair. I made 2 more, which I made out of longer pieces because I wasn't sure how tight this would be. So these ones might not be usable because I'm going to need to cut a lot of the wood out of this. That little piece there is probably about right, but I've got loads of this left over. We can make more of it. And it was only a couple of pounds for an A5 sheet of this stuff. Fortunately, the grain on it runs, like I say, the grain runs one way. If this is the shape, the rectangular shape, the grain runs top to bottom. So actually all I need to do is just keep slicing off lengths of it and they roll up that way, which is great because if the grain was the other way, I wouldn't have as much. But yeah, there's loads on there. So that is the next part. We'll see when we get to it. Okay, we're back. So I trimmed it down, and I did that by literally just wrapping it around this and then holding it in place and just using this to just press down and cut through the grain, which works perfectly. You'll notice that the one that's in there is a little bit shorter, and that's the reason is because I actually cut this one too narrow. If you cut them so that they are completely joined, it's still too big because it has to fit on the inside of this hole. So it's trial and error. We just cut a little bit off, and I don't cut it too much. So that one is gone. We took one of the other ones that I'd already pre-made and we unrolled that as carefully as possible. And I cut one off that is pretty much, I think, there. As you can see, it's just overlapping itself slightly on there, but that's because it's not tight in the hole. Now, this 10mm is too big. With this, obviously, it's perfect in there. It's not friction fit. You can still pull it out easily, and it's got much less wobble. So that's not going to fit down there. Trying to fit that in there is just going to split all this. So what we've done is I've taken a 12mm dowel, chucked it up in my drill, and sanded that down against a block of sandpaper until we get this at less than 10mm, and ever so slightly fluted the whole way. And that, with a bit of pressure, as you can see, as soon as you see that, it starts to open this up. And this one actually might still be cut too shy, but that's opening up at the outside. It's got a bit of flex. On the inside, it shouldn't open up much more than that. And I think if I glue this in and then tack this down with a hammer as far as I can go, and what I'll do is I'll put it in there and I'll draw a mark around it so I can see, so I know when I'm at the bottom. And then we'll tap that down as far as I can go. And if we need to, I'll take this out and I can just sand it a little bit more. And we'll tap that in and we'll leave that while this glue dries. And I could make another one, but I could just do one of these at a time. To be fair, it only takes a few hours for wood glue to dry. It doesn't even take a few hours, but I'll leave each one overnight. And then we'll come back and we'll cut these down. So that's the plan. The plan is to take this out, smear some wood glue around the outside of the veneer. I don't think I'm going to put any wood glue down the inside of the hole because I don't want it pooling at the bottom. I don't want to be there any more glue than needs to be because the pressure of the post, imagine this is the post, the pressure of the post pushing it apart is going to keep it tight in there anyway. The glue really is just to bond it to this surface, to the original mahogany in there, and hopefully to try and influence it to not shred as the splines of the post go down there. But that's the plan. We're going to give that a go. So we'll do one at a time and see how we get on. Okay, I'm sorry you're not seeing most of this on camera, but I don't have anybody else to film it. So I needed 2 hands to get that in there and tap it down. But basically what I did was I held it in my fingers and I rubbed glue all the way around the outside of it. You can see where some of it's come up over the top. That's not a problem. It's all going to get trimmed off. Before I put it in, I put it round this, and you can see I marked a pencil line, so I know when this is at the fully at the bottom. And once that was in, I just, with a bit of faith and this little dinky hammer, here's the dramatic reenactment. I just tapped it down until A, I could feel it bottom out, and B, I can see my pencil line. And I know that means that both the veneer has gone all the way to the bottom, because I put that in first, put the veneer in first, pushed it down to its bottom, and then this goes down. And I know this is at the pin, or the plug, if you like, is at the bottom because I can feel it. And if that pencil line lines up with this, I know everything's at the bottom, everything's the full way down. So we'll leave that to dry, and I hope I haven't got any glue spill out on the inside that will actually glue this in, because that will make it very tricky to get this out. There won't be a lot of glue. If there has been, it will only have come down where I created that seam. When I was gluing it up, it's almost impossible to avoid getting some going underneath. So there'll be some against this, but I'm hoping it's a smooth enough surface where I've sanded it, and it's such a tiny amount. If I get a pair of grips on this and pull it out, hopefully this will come out without damaging this. And if that works, then we'll do the second one, and we'll put that one in that side, and then we'll cut them both back, and then we'll see where we are with whether I need to try and enlarge the holes with a drill bit, which I'd really rather not do, because I think that will just rip it to shreds. Or if we can go in and just tap the posts in. Once I've got this out, maybe I should have done it before, I can measure this with a pair of calipers to find out what size this is versus what size the posts are. And if this goes in, then we know, and they're the same size, then we know the post will go in. Hopefully the post is ever so slightly bigger than this. But basically my way of checking to see if this would fit is I have a drill guide, a gauge that has 4mm, 6mm, 8mm, 10mm holes in it. And I just kept sanding this until this slid into the 10mm hole. This I feel was a little bit tighter than the post. The post easily fell into that 10mm hole in the gauge. So we'll see. I don't know whether the glue will make, because it's water-based glue, whether that'll make the mahogany veneer expand. But again, we'll see. I've never done this before, so this is a first for me, and we'll see how we go on.